guys, this is Megan with Lutherian Fiber Arts. I'm here at the Powell Gardens, which is Kansas City's botanical garden, so I can harvest their lotus pond. We're gonna make fiber out of these lotus stems. So, how did we get to lotus fibers anyway? For me, it started with several articles that came out near the beginning of September 2020 that discussed lotus silk. Right around that same time, Long Thread Media also published a compilation of articles and essays. The book is called The Long Thread, which it features a piece about lotus silk. It's absolutely wonderful. I encourage you to read it if you can go ahead and get a copy. But all of a sudden, this unique fiber was in the spotlight. I'll take a moment to add that as a fiber artist, I explore textile traditions that many of which aren't my own. And for me, this is a learning experience. And I don't pretend to hold any true expertise when it comes to lotus. I'll try to share the insights that I gathered while working with this fiber. But if you are interested in learning more, I suggest that you check out Samatoa Lotus Textiles, which is a company that is working with weavers in Cambodia to help preserve this art form. Across India, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Thailand, lotus fibers have been harvested for thousands of years to create this cloth, which it's breathable, it's wrinkle resistant, it's water resistant. So I worked with Mark S., the garden's coordinator of education programs, who identified the best location to harvest lotus stems, and he helped us tote everything back and forth from the pond with his mighty golf cart. I also wrangled a friend and colleague, Christina Swamp Monster Larkins, as she prefers to be called, who she helped me film, harvest the lotus, and she laughed at me when I cursed and sank in the mud. Ugh. Oh shit, I'm sinking! Oh shit, I'm sinking! Here's what I learned while harvesting. First, mud sucks. Literally and figuratively. I am knee deep in mud right now. About 10 feet out from the shore, the mud was thigh high and I couldn't go any deeper. Oh, thank God for waders. Another thing that I learned is that spiders really like to hang out in lotus patches. Like a lot of spiders. If you're afraid of spiders, I don't suggest you try lotus fiber. And we also harvested in mid-September. If I were going to do this again, I would have harvested at least a month earlier. The stems need to be fresh and plump to harvest the fiber, and some of the stems we gathered were starting to wilt. The old stems were either like too woody or too soggy, and sometimes weirdly both, but they were almost impossible to break and produce fiber. Also to note here, later when spinning, I discovered that the best and the highest quality fibers were in the top 12 to 14 inches of the stem, right below the leaf or the flower or the seed pod. It took me a while to confirm this, but after breaking a few hundred stems, it became pretty clear that while there is a bit of fiber in the lower stem, it really wasn't enough to be worth the effort of harvesting it. If I didn't make it clear before, wading through mud is exhausting. I was able to gather fiber for about an hour and a half before I finally gave up. I was able to take out a patch of from about 10 feet by 25 feet along the pond shore. And I managed to gather probably about 150 to 250 stems in that time. Keep in mind that it takes 32 to 35,000 stems to make a yard of cloth. Yep. You want to guess what else is hard beside wading in mud? Let's talk about breaking stems. So before I went out to the botanical garden, I did a whole bunch of research. I read articles, I watched videos, and in most of the videos that I watched of people processing lotus, they used a knife to score the stems before breaking them. Now, I tried 3 different knives and none of them were sharp enough to do this safely. I did find that I was able to break the stems without scoring them, but it was much harder on my hands. It took a fair amount of practice. As I mentioned already, the best fiber was in the top 12 to 14 inches of the stem, and it didn't really matter how thick or thin the stems were. Also, in most of the videos that I saw, it seems that 3 to 5 stems are usually broken at once to speed up the process. And for most of the time that I did this, I could only easily and cleanly break 1 at a time. By the time I was getting close to finishing, I could pretty regularly do 2 and occasionally 3, but it took a lot of practice to get there. To actually turn the fibers into yarn, I layered them on a flat, unfinished wooden surface. The surface had just enough grab to hold onto the fibers as I drew them out. I probably couldn't have used anything smoother. Oh, and yeah, the surface has to be wet. The fibers stick to absolutely everything otherwise. The fibers are then rolled with the palm of the hand to add twist. This is one of the most ancient forms of spinning, and if you don't roll the twist all the way to the end of the section of the yarn you're working on, or if you don't add enough twist, or if Venus is in retrograde, you'll have a weak spot in your thread. So it does take a lot of practice. Traditionally, the thread is left to pile in a bowl near the spinner. I didn't trust myself not to get a tangled mess, so I ended up winding it on a bobbin as I went along. You keep doing that over and over and over until you grow old and feeble and your hands hurt. You keep doing that until you wear your fingerprints off your thumb and index fingers. You keep doing that until your husband asks where you've been the past 3 days. It took me just over 10 hours to break and spin the stems that I collected. And do you want to know how much thread I got? This is the thread I made. This is it. A 10 by 25 patch of lotus with 2 hours of harvesting and toting and 10 hours of breaking and spinning made maybe a gram, 2? For the amount of work that goes into making lotus thread, it makes sense that it has historically been considered a sacred cloth. But I'll be honest, if I had a time machine, I might go back and stop the first person who figured out how to pull thread out of a pondweed. Just kidding. If you do consider exploring this art, remember to be safe. This is not a solo exploration. Don't go wading in deep mud by yourself. The spiders aren't going to rescue you. And if you do try it, let us know how it goes. As sore as I am, it was well worth learning about. Could you please do me a favor? If you don't mind, could you please subscribe to my channel? That'll let you know whenever I put out new videos, and it'll also help me be able to produce more videos. So hit that subscribe button, and thank you for watching. Cheers!